Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Dorma. This is their part number 9500. And the unit that I have here is going to be a 9500 exit device with the YC08M trim. And it's going to be with a 465, and I believe that's the strike, but we'll discover that in a moment. Has a right-hand reverse and a 626 finish. So let's take a closer look at what this is. I've got it here, and then its trim is here. This is going to be Dorma's Grade 1 series flagship 9000 series devices. The B in the part number you see is for a 3-foot door. That's the letter they use. Okay. Now I'm going to place it back here and start to take the parts out of the box. Well, that's great. That's an entire booklet. There's one thing that's good about Dorma is that they're very complete when it comes to their materials. So, the 9000 series is a series of exit devices that's going to include the 9100 concealed vertical rod, the 9300 wide style rim, which would be their standard, a rim device. That would be for a typical wide style aluminum door, or obviously wood or hollow metal. The 9400 is a surface vertical rod. The 9500 is for the Mortise lock version, and that's what we're looking at today, the Mortise lock version. And let's go over a review of what the 9500 is, an overview. An overview first of the 9500. The 9500, or the F9500, the fire-rated version, includes a heavy-duty, high-quality, dead-locking Mortise lock body that provides a high level of security and exceptional durability. The Mortise lock chassis with the new Mortise lock chassis, apparently they've evolved the device, has been evolved to permit faster field installation in terms of reversing. There are some reversing instructions here. Remove the latch set screw, hex key provided. Okay, sure. So the bottom line is there's going to be a set screw inside of here, and I'm not going to reverse the device here. The instructions are literally on the lock case. That's going to permit you to basically remove that, take it out, flip it over, stick it back in, tighten the screw down. It's a done deal. This lock body is going to permit it to work with lots of different functions, just looking at it. And I would imagine that this is going to be the foundation or the footprint of their Mortise locks. You can put a thumb piece trim on here. You can obviously run spindle material through here, even though there's only one locking hub or one square hub on one side. I would think that this is not going to work for all functions of locks, because I would think that at a certain point you need to have independent trim control depending on what you're doing. You'd be able to thread cylinders into here. There's going to be the ability to draw that latch back. Lock it or unlock it is there as well. The deadlocking capability. Okay, so a Mortise lock. I like to use Mortise lock exit devices in all instances when I can, because first of all, the substantial construction of a Mortise lock, whether it be exit device or, of course, just simply a Mortise lock, is so much more robust than a relatively more petite piece of hardware that is meant to fit into a smaller space. There's not a lot of restraint on how they can make this case, in the sense that you've got an 8-inch tall Mortise prep in your door that's 5 inches deep or so. So you can really handle robust pieces of internal components. In addition to that, I like to have the latch bolt concealed in the edge of the door, in the sense that you don't see it from the interior side. I don't know if a Pullman latch on a rim device would be technically stronger than this in terms of sheer pounds required to pull it open. But I don't know that that would ever matter. I don't think someone's going to try to drill a hole through the door and spread chain through it and then drive off with a truck and pull the door open. I don't know that that would really matter. I simply find exit devices with mortise locks significantly more robust, more elegant in terms of their perspective. You see less hardware on the face of the door. And it also gives you a more elegant way by which to latch it to the frame in terms of options. It'll use a standard strike prep for a hollow metal frame, or a 4 7/8 prep. But if you're doing access control, you can get into having that electric strike inside the frame rather than some surface mounted strike, or maybe an unusual preparation that's necessary. So you're starting with material that is going to give you a more elegant installation. Also, when you do strikes for rim devices, you know, your templating on the door has to account for that. So you're sure never going to use a stock 86 edge door. Forgive me, you're not going to use a stock 161 lock when you're using a strike. It has to be surface mounted to the stop itself. Maybe it's preference, and you don't sell mortise devices that often in comparison to rim devices. And it's certainly because of the cost. But they are, in my opinion, far more elegant. And I'll use them every time that I can. Well, in this case, this material is going to end up at a military base in Asia. And makes sense to me that it would be a mortise device on a high-volume application, which I expect this actually is. So how to order a 9500 series device, and this is, we're just really going to get into talking about the different options that are available, and then we're going to drill down to the particulars. Before we do that, the 9000 series itself is a grade 1 device. That means it's been tested to 1,000,000 cycles. You can order this material UL and ULC listed, and it will be, if you order an F or fire rated device, it will be visually identified as such. If you have a fire rated door, if you have a fire rated opening, you'll want to be sure that all components are either listed or labeled. They'll all be listed, meaning they've been tested and there's documentation on file somewhere, but many products will visually be labeled. You can look at it, and the inspector will be able to see that there's a label applied to that. Hinges are an exception. Closers sometimes are an exception, that they don't physically have a label on them, but hinges are almost, unless they're spring hinges. Spring hinges have to be stamped with their UL information on them, but ball bearing hinges don't. But they are listed. You'd be able to contact the manufacturer and pull that data. Comes with, forgive me, I misread that. Complies with NFPA 101 life safety code. And as far as I know about the life safety code in terms of an exit device, is that what comes to mind is that the actuating portion of the device will occupy not less than 50% of the actual width of the door. Okay. The exterior trim will be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, ANSI 117.1, in terms of it being accessible for usable buildings and facilities. Contributes to U.S. Green Building Council LEED MR credits 2.1, 4.1, 4.2, 5.1. You can review all of this data in the product catalog below. These are also hurricane code approved for Miami-Dade, and they have a Florida building listing number. You would be able to search on the Florida. There is a state of Florida sponsored directory where you can enter the manufacturer's name, and you'll be able to pull up the listing for that. If you're doing doors in Florida, you're going to need hurricane compliant, windstorm compliant material. All devices are heavy-duty cast chassis. Okay, sure, the chassis itself is going to be considered heavy-duty. It is. It's a grade 1. The device, touch bar, rail, and cover assemblies are constructed of heavy-gauge, solid, wrought materials for true architectural finishes and color-coded finishes. What that means is every part of an exit device, every single piece, will be of would not be the same base material. You might have some plastic, you might have some die-cast zinc, you might have some stainless, you might have some brass. The point of that is all of it will be compatible. Whatever is not the proper base material for the finish, and this was ordered as 626, brass with a satin chrome plating on it. The other materials that are not made of brass will be compatible. The partial length touchpad assembly accommodates field installation of options such as cylinder dogging and exit alarms. Non-labeled units have a hex key dogging as standard. Fire-rated versions available for labeled applications. Your fire device is not going to have hex key dogging. All devices will have a 3/4 inch, all deadlocking devices will have a 3/4 inch throw. That's going to be really important because your the listing on your fire-rated device is probably going to say minimum latch throw, and the label will actually say that on the door. A variety of different trim options are available, such as freewheeling trim. Clutch options are there as well, and will include appropriate mounting hardware for the composition of the door and frame as you've ordered it. You can do cylinder dogging, which would be for non-rated devices. You can order these, well, this is a Mortise device. You can do things such as motorized latch retraction, which in my opinion would be far superior to an electric strike. I would like to keep my hardware as concealed as much as possible, and electrifying the latch retraction I think would be a bit more elegant than having an electric strike. Power supplies are available for any electrified options. From Dorma, you would want to order their power supply, even though you could certainly probably power it with any power supply, really. But in order to have a maintained factory warranty, you'll want to use the same products and the ones specifically listed for the product. I would not imagine that you would invest in electrified exit devices and then not use the original manufacturer's power supply because of the exposure to not having a warranty should there be a problem in that regard. You can do delayed egress options on this material as well. Latch bolt monitoring can be done. You can do RX or request to exit switches. You might need to hit that device and tell something to let go, like a magnetic lock, things of that nature. You might need to communicate. Or conversely, you might need to have a switch inside of the device so that when your automatic doors are activated, they can retract that latch bolt so the doors can tick open. Okay. Latch bolt monitoring, again, you can do latch bolt monitoring in the touch bar. You can have monitor switches as well. You can have exit alarms. You hit that device, the alarm will go off, obviously. You can hit that device and have it report back to a remote station as well. Shim kits are available should you be doing this onto a door that has some molding, some trim for the vision frame. You can build that off. That would be available. You can install these on wood, steel, fiberglass, really anything. You'll want to be sure that you've ordered the proper bolt package, including sex bolts, should that be necessary for your application, and it's very likely necessary. Meaning if you had fire-rated wood doors and the doors were not ordered as reinforced for the device, you'll absolutely demand that you have sex bolts. Be mindful when you do fire-rated wood doors, the architect may not have in mind on the pull side seeing all these little heads of bolts. So encourage the specifier to order the wood doors as reinforced so you don't have to through bolt material. You can order tamper-resistant screws as well. Specify that. You can do many finishes. All of your architectural finishes, your satin, brass, polished brass, bright bronze, that's a gorgeous color, satin bronze, oil-rubbed bronze, satin nickel, black, bright and polished chrome, and then stainless steel. You can do powder-coated finishes. Aluminum, light and dark bronze, black, gold, clear powder coating, which would be a clear, like a clear anodized aluminum, but it would be powder coat. Antimicrobial is available as well, especially on your trim should you be in a healthcare situation and they want to retard the potential transmission of bacteria. You can order antimicrobial. That would really just be on your stainless steel, I think is the only place you would see that. Okay, now getting into specifically this 9500 that I have on my desk here. Let's take a closer look at it. So this is a 9500, but it has a YC08 trim. And it's important to, or a 08 trim, an 08. The 08 is a function, entrance by knob or lever, key locks or unlocks knob or lever. Okay, so what you're going to have is the ability to leave this locked or unlocked, is the short version of all of this. Let's first take a tour of the device itself. So, being Dorma, it's going to be packaged in its top-level components. Okay, so we have our crossbar. Being compliant gives you this device at not less than 50% of the width of the door. The actuating device. Be mindful that, and this is spot on at 18 inch, be very mindful that you order the proper door size device. This is a B device. A B device means it's for a 3-foot door or 2'8", that sort of business. But if you have a 4-foot device, you're going to want to order, that might be the A option, forgive me. We'll go over that momentarily. Let's take a closer look at that. And I did have to look it up because I had forgotten. The A is indeed for a wider door. 4-foot maximum, 34-inch minimum. The B size is for a 36-inch maximum down to a 28-inch minimum. And if you've got a door between 30 and 25-inch, order the C device, the C letter for the length. And that, again, gets into how wide the touch bar is for your device. As we said earlier, this is a non-fire rated device, so it's going to incorporate the dogging capability that's in here. We might need to activate that to get it to move. So you're going to have your head case, your head cover, I should say. It's made of brass. Okay, it's going to be satin, chrome plated. The most durable of all artificial surfaces or finishes. Okay, and this is how this is going to work. Okay, this is obviously ordered as the proper hand. This was ordered as a right hand reverse, and that is indeed the case with this device. Your hinges are going to be over here, and that's going to lift that mortise lock so the door can come out this way towards you. And that's going to communicate with this flapper right here. Okay? That's how that works. What's going to depress this, of course, it's obviously going to look like that. And that when we depress the push bar or the touch bar, it's your linkage that's going to move. Laminated steel plates. It's going to render this to be an incredibly heavy-duty device. Okay. Obviously, this chassis can probably do other things as well. This is probably, you know, base components for doing surface vertical rod material. See what else we have in the box. I did put 2 armor fronts in here. There's be no reason to have 2 armor fronts. There are 2 in the box for some reason. Better 2 than 0, I suppose. This will be our hardware package. We'll go over that quickly. Now, 465's in the part number. That's your strike. Okay, this will be the strike required. You're going to have your end cap. You're going to have your mounting plate for your end cap as well. The end cap plate is going to mount to the face of the door, and your end cap is literally going to sit over that plate, and it's going to permit you to get all of this installed. Now, the way that this works, or I should say what's nice about the design inherently from Dorma, and they're not the only people who do it, but not everybody does it, is that when you have this installed, it's going to look like that. The point I'm trying to make here is that this is a tapered edge, so that when the doors open at 90 degrees, it's not a blunt edge here. The concept is it will drive you off and away a little bit, okay? Same concept with this. As I push forward, it will make the unit retract. The concept of this sloped cap, rather than being blunt, is that you can have a door that will be in a cross corridor. It will be in a corridor, and you need to move something through that corridor that might already be a bit tight. And the ability to hit this cap and hopefully be glanced off because of the taper to it is the concept of how to keep that all happily working. Here's your hex key and all of your fasteners. You're going to want to not lose the hex key. This is called hex key dogging. When I depress my bar and hold it in, I can then insert my key and rotate it. I can then remove my key and it will stay dogged until I reverse the process. Counterclockwise, I just wasn't, because I'm holding it vertical, I didn't get it right in the hole until you reverse the dogging. Cylinder dogging is obviously a really, hex key dogging is a great idea because it will, when you don't need to have the device actuated, or you don't need to have the device latched, dog it open. You might have services in a school or a church. Not that a school would really feature a dogged device, but if you need, okay, here's a great example. You've got an auto body shop, and during the day you want your clients to come and go freely. Dog that device open. No reason to cycle the device, hopefully hundreds of times a day, right? So dog it. It's an exterior door, may not necessarily need to be latched. You know, certainly being an exterior door, it may not be fire rated. It's likely that it's not. So keep that in mind. That would be a good use of that. And the rest of the packaging is going to give you just the different fasteners that you'll need for the case, the bar itself, and then your cover. Okay, they did say that the hex key was included. If that Allen wrench, if you remember what that was for, it was for the potential of having to reverse the latch bolt on this. I believe that this entire device could be reversed should you need to. Obviously, the latch would have to be reversed. I'm sure you could pull that cover off and flip parts over if you needed to. And apparently the lifting finger can be turned over and put down on this end and lift it from down here. So I won't make an attempt to reverse the device, but I bet I could field reverse this. I don't see any reason why I can't. Now let's do a visual tour of the trim. And when you order devices, you need to know the function of how you want the device to operate. Meaning, not every function is going to be built into every body. So if you want a classroom type function like what we're dealing with here, you need to order it that way because you may or may not be able to expect it to work in a different fashion. You may not be able to convert a classroom to a storeroom function where you realize, oh gosh, someone's leaving the exterior trim unlocked because they're unlocking it and then removing the key. You might want to convert that to a storeroom function. You've got to order it the right way just so you get the right parts. Okay, so with this device, you've got a YC08M. M is for the 9500 series. And here's your real big heavy lever. This is the design of what the client ordered. You're going to have a massive spindle that fits inside of here. Very heavy duty use. This lever is heavy on its own. Here's your escutcheon. Okay. That lever is obviously going to be fitting down over this. I can't put it all the way down because I have to thread it in. But you've got these features here to the inside of the lever, and that's going to be your positive stop when it's operating correctly. Okay. That is going to communicate to the mortise lock body itself via the spindle that's here, which should be just technically some square stock. Yep, indeed. So without fitting it all together, this hub is going to work with the mortise case as such. And every time you turn that lever is when you're going to get that rotation or that retraction of the latch bolt. Okay. A really simple system to put together. You need instructions. You need to go over the instructions, which we're going to in a moment. But at the end of the day, it's nice to take out high-quality hardware like this and just get familiar with it. You're also going to get a mortise cylinder. This is going to be an 1.125" C keyway, a Schlage C, which obviously is what they use. It's going to have a Dorma bow on it. It's going to be 6-pin. You'll have a standard cam, which is what you're going to need to run this. Dorma can do lots of different keyways as well. Interchangeable core, conventional core like this. They can do in-house master keying very easily, not a problem at all. Okay, so a substantial quality solid brass cylinder. I don't know if they're manufacturing these or if they're buying these from someone. It doesn't really matter, but they may be manufacturing them themselves. It doesn't appear to look like any one cylinder that I've seen in the past. Now, there is a link below this video to the product catalog, which I've mentioned and I've basically read from. There's also a link to the how to order guide. It's just a step-by-step how you build a part number. But then there's a link to the installation instructions. And to go over that thoroughly is not something I'm going to do in this video because it's just not necessary. But to go over it topically, I'd like to do. So in that installation instructions, it's a booklet. I mean, this is 14 pages. But be mindful that a lot of installation instructions on stuff like this is, 14 pages. You probably need to look at 2 of them, closely. You're going to have an overview. You're going to have, and what I always do when I start a project is I go through my parts list. I make sure that I have all the parts I'm going to need so that I don't start drilling, don't start taking out all the tools to realize I'm missing the spindle and now I can't do anything. Always check all of that material first and foremost. So page 1 is the cover. Page 2 gives you a definition of the swing of the doors. It's handy to understand how they're defining the hand of the door because the templating will refer to, shown as, right hand reverse. So if you're doing field preparations for function holes, you'll know how to reverse it once you define what view you're looking at. So be mindful of that. Screw chart is there. Don't know if that applies to everything that's here. But now we get into the door and frame prep on page 3. And like all templates, there's lots of dimensions that are happening there. There's lots of things that seem to confuse, especially if it's your first time. But the bottom line is this. This is showing us a standard mortise lock door and frame prep. This would be called an 86 edge, is what door manufacturers would call it, in the sense of it being an American National Standards Institute reference. If you call it an 86 edge, that's what you're getting here. As you study that, you see a cross-section of the door and frame. Okay, it's showing you a square edge door and a beveled edge door. That's really important because it's only important the first time you do it. The reference of back set of where you prep something is the back set is 2 3/4. You can see that they're referring to back set 2 3/4. It's important to understand where they're referencing that from. The back set is defined, as you see down in the bottom beveled edge picture. It's not clearly called out, but it's from the center of the thickness of the door. 2 3/4 back, that's your back set. If you have a square edge door, it's just from the edge of the door. But if you have a beveled edge door, it's neither from the high side, which would be the pull side, or the small side, or the low side, which would be the push side. It's really from the center of the door. So you have to, based on where you're putting your tape measure, you really have to compensate for that almost a 1/16 of an inch. The bevel on that door is called 3 degree. It's also called 1/8 and 2. For every 2 inches in thickness, you've got 1/8 of an inch relief. If you were to take that door and put a square, a framing square, right onto the small corner of it, you'll be able to see how that 3 degree bevel departs from the square edge after you've placed it on the door. So be mindful. If you're off a 1/16, you're going to say to yourself, gosh, I should have drilled that a little bit better, when you don't understand the definition of backset. So it's important to know it so that you are marking your holes correctly to begin with. Now, the other information that we're seeing here, and this is the device template, is that you have the support about center line. So you've got this 3/8 tall preparation that's there, in the sense of it referring to the supports. So the support about center line plus or minus 1 inch, 3/8 tall. There's nothing for you to drill there. They're just referring to the fact that on the inside of the construction of the steel door, they should have a couple of pieces of lock supports that are being brought together so that when you stick the lock body in, it doesn't flap around on the inside and that it's captured between the supports. This will touch the supports and keep it from moving this way. That's all that is. Now, they're showing the edge, the 8-inch edge preparation, 1 1/4 wide, and your 2 mounting tabs, and then the strike plate that's required, the 4 7/8 strike. What's really important to understand is, what is the center line of the lock? Something's going to be determined for you, for sure. The location of the strike, or the location of the prep in the door, or both of those, very likely. You need to then just translate your function holes based on what it's referring to. There is a center line of the strike dimension, and you'll notice that the center line of the strike is 3/8 of an inch higher than the center line of the lock that would be on the door. That's normal, 3/8 of an inch, even though if you measured on the frame and then to the door, you'd only find it to be 1/4 inch because you have 1/8 of an inch margin at the top of the door. So when you're transferring your mounting points, understand backset, understand the center line. That all really matters. A cylindrical lock has a center line. The center line of the strike is the center line of the lock, except that if you measured it, you'll be off the margin at the top of the door. But they're the same. You don't adjust it. And the reason that that's adjusted is because, literally, the way I was taught is that you need to kick the body down because you potentially have a lot more stuff to stuff into your strike. And if this wasn't biased 3/8 lower, you would never be able to fit the entire possible deadbolt and latch into the strike because it would hit at the top. So they drop that body down 3/8 and you're in good shape. The disadvantage of mortise locks and standard preparations is that if you have cylindrical and mortise locks on the same job, the center line of your trim is not going to be the same. And there's no way to account for that unless you are literally adjusting something. But that's a downside of mixing the two lock types together. Moving to page 4 of the installation instructions, you see that horizontal reference line at 40 and 5/16 from the finished floor. That's also going to be from the bottom of your jamb. If you were to measure a bottom of a jamb of a Steel Door Institute member hollow metal manufacturer, 40 and 5/16. They give you the floor dimension because they don't know if you're dealing with a 6/8 door, 7/0, 8/0, 7/6, 9 foot, 10 foot, whatever you're dealing with. So the floor dimension is what's going to be constant, and it is certainly within the required range of ADA compliance. Okay. Looking at the rest of page 4, they refer to the open back strike. The 465 strike, that's the strike that I've shown you. That's a typical 4 and 7/8 tall strike. Regular ANSI strike prep. The 565 open back strike is a possibility when you're dealing with a mortise lock in a pair of doors where you have a surface or concealed vertical rod on the other door. Because in that situation, you need to be able to hit either door independently. If you had a 465 strike, you would not be able to hit that inactive door with the rods and exit. Only with an open back strike could you do that. So that's why they show that there. Because open back strikes relate to pairs of doors, relate to mortise lock and vertical rod devices. Okay, so that's where you'll see that. Now, they do have instructions on how to hand or rehand or change the hand of this material. My theory was right. I would have missed one of the pieces to change, but nonetheless, page 5 shows you how to reverse the chassis. That's good. Order it from the factory the way that you want it handed. It's going to save you the trouble of having to do it, and the possibility of losing parts. Now we get into Now, moving off of page 4, we get into page 5 and the reversing instructions. Page 5 also shows you the general concept on how to install the cylinder. Now, it is important to take note of the orientation of the tailpiece or the cam on the back of the mortise cylinder. Okay. You might need to reverse that depending on, or flip it upside down depending on the function of the lock, and we'll get to that in a moment. I believe you're going to turn it over if it's a storeroom function, if my memory serves me. Page 6, really all that page 6 is showing us, when you get your template, which is at the back end of the installation instructions, and this is just the device template, when you get to that point of pulling the template out and looking at it, they're showing you a center punch and a hammer. Get that located, the template, however you're going to do it. Remove the template, apply it to the door, or just transfer dimensions. But double check it before you start center punching. Absolutely center punch the holes. Absolutely. Because that drill bit has a tendency to walk a little bit, and I'm going to have a bad day if I'm drilling my holes. This is off 30 thousandths. This one's off 30 thousandths. This one's off 30 thousandths. This one's off. Now it's off. It's off. And now you're reaming out holes, and the job's not as good as it could otherwise be. So knowing the technical support people at Dorma, one gentleman in particular who's exceptional, if they're saying to use a center punch, there's a reason for it. They're not in the business of selling center punches. They show you how to install the mortise cavity. That's going to be simple business. They show you in step 7 how to get that lock chassis onto the face of the door. And through through the door to the outside trim, you'll notice the mounting points are obviously going to be above and below your mortise lock, so you're not going through the mortise body at all, obviously. Different trims are going to be listed there for your review, just as an example. Step 8, you're going to have to cut the bar, no doubt. Most likely, you'll have to cut the bar, and you do it as shown. You can trim that door all the way down to 28 inch, and that's really, really minimum door opening. That's a really small door. You know, 2'4" hollow metal doors, single doors, where are you going to see that? You do occasionally. I did a project in Chicago on the north side, near north end of the city, Lawrence Avenue, near the lakefront, and they had 35 pairs of 2'8", 2'4" doors on stairwells, and they needed to have vertical rods on those doors because they weren't putting mullions, and they needed to have a device that will fit on such a tiny door. So that's a good dimension, and they can even get you down to 2'1" as well with that C size. Step 9 shows you, they're talking about how to put the chassis on. That's just going to fall on, and it is really important that in step 10 you do level off your device, because you might be viewing that device from 50 feet away, and if you're off 1/8 of an inch, it's going to look like it's crooked. So be mindful to do it that way. Step 11 talks about any sort of adjustment that you'll make. I doubt you'll need to make any adjustments whatsoever. 12 and 13, you get the trim pieces put on, the end cap. You're going to get the head case cover installed. You're going to make sure your dogging works. You're going to make sure you can undog it. Now, options, if you're going to do cylinder dogging, you'll have the instructions there for that. You would order it cylinder dogging. I do believe you can retrofit cylinder dogging in the field. I'm actually quite sure that you can. If you find that you've got people dogging your device that aren't supposed to leave it unlocked, put cylinder dogging on it and solve that problem. Take the key away from them, basically. Latch bolt monitoring is there. Latch bolt monitoring is really important because you need to know whether or not someone is artificially holding that back. Okay? Very interesting story. Do you know that Watergate was discovered because someone had tampered with keeping the latch retracted. Now, they didn't tape the latch back. I understand what happened was that they put something into the strike, but the latch couldn't throw out. Well, the night watchman came by and noticed this condition, pulled the tape off. Or it may have been the latch. I don't recall the story. It might have been the latch held back. Pulled the tape off, doors locked. Came back 2 hours later and it was put back again. And that's how it was discovered at Watergate. Latch bolt monitoring is going to report to someone whether or not that is in this compromised position. Important. If it's schools, if it's airports, if it's hospital, daycare, assisted living, you very likely are going to need latch bolt monitoring for that purpose. You can, and the wiring diagram is basically there. There's micro switches available that you can communicate to other stuff. If you want to know the condition of the door, you can report that back with a micro switch. There's a magnetic dogging option as well. Electrically dogs touch bar when energized by power supply, then depressed. Releases upon interruption of power. That would be a code-compliant way to have dogging on a fire-rated door. So what that means is a fire-rated door, it's cardinal rule is that it's self-closing and self-latching. Also needs to be freely swinging. But if you dog the device open, you no longer have a latching device. You don't have a fire-rated door. But if you have magnetic dogging or electric dogging, that's communicated from the fire panel, where the fire panel says, let it go, latch it, you're good. You have a fire-rated device, and they can do that for you. Delayed egress is also an option if you're getting into a situation where you have probably healthcare and you need, whether it be assisted living or it be hospitals directly, you need to be able to hold someone for 15 seconds, maybe 30, but 15 is normal, so that staff can get to the opening. Seriously true story. Nursing home, northwest suburbs of Chicago, 10 years ago. Grandpa, he's going for a walk, and he was able to get out that stairwell from the 3rd floor, the Alzheimer's floor, believe it or not, down the stairs to an exterior door, and he was out. 17 degrees outside. He's in a short sleeve shirt. I understand he was outside for a good 20 minutes. And he was fine, but the fact of the matter is that should never have occurred. Delayed egress, Grandpa hits it, and within, don't quote me, but maybe within 2 seconds of holding it depressed, you are locked down for another 13 seconds, total of 15. That will report back, based on the electrification reporting that the device can do, back to the nurse's station, basically an alert. Grandpa's trying to leave. Staff can get there, mitigate the problem, reset the device, and everything is good. But that would be a perfect example of delayed egress. Another example of delayed egress is the back of an electronics store. Yeah, someone needs to be notified if there is a skid of 4K 120-inch high defs that are about to leave the building without there being an order for it. So that could be another reason you'd have delayed egress, for security to get there. The last page is literally the template of this device. And what you're going to have is, it's incredibly elegant what they've done here. You've got the inside of the device. Okay, they give you the 4 mounting, and what I like to do is I like to do a reality check. They give you the 4 mounting holes, and they don't give dimensions. They just give, it's a paper template. You've got to cut it and slap it on. You could obviously measure it if you wanted to do that. This is what we're looking at. Okay. So you're going to have 4 preparations on the inside of the door. Now be mindful. There's inside prep. There are outside preps. Those are not the same, although sometimes they go through. Sometimes. What I mean by that is your 4 mounting holes are going to go through the door. I don't recommend that you drill through the door. It's not going to be straight. Mine never are. Yours might be, but mine never are. The inside face of the door has that rectangular cutout, inside face only. Well, you do a reality check, and you're like, okay, well, that's for this gizmo. That's for this. That's where that's going. Okay. Now, when you look at the outside face, you're going to notice that you're going to do a larger prep for that lock case, should it be called out, and a prep for a cylinder, and the 4 mounting holes for the head case chassis. You're going to have letters applied to all of this stuff that is going to refer to important things about the item. So on your 4 mounting holes, are you doing an A, B, or a C? Well, an A is going to be an 1/8 of an inch drill, and then a tap if you're doing an A and a B, or if you're going to through bolt it, then you know what size hole you need to drill. The opposite side of the door is going to be a 3/8 hole. Okay, so you don't need a 3/8 hole all the way through the door for this trim if you're only running, you know, a small bolt through here, a smaller screw, even though 3/8 would certainly work for it. So you know you're going to need those 4 holes. You know you're going to need the hole for the spindle to go through to the lock case, and then you know you're going to need your cylinder hole up here. Now what I like to do is I literally like to look at all of that and say, okay, does all of that line up? Does where my spindle and my spindle go, my hub go, does that make sense? Like it's all going to line up. And when I look at all of that, I realize, yeah, that all makes perfect sense. I'll even take it a step further, and I'll start to, you know, do a reality check on the parts before I start cutting the door. Templates are almost never wrong. Almost. If I've looked at 10,000 templates, 2 of them are wrong. And the factory's very, very grateful that you pointed that out. And I don't mean that sarcastically. A couple of them are wrong. Very rare, though. And if you think the template's wrong, I put my ego in check, and then I put my thinking cap on, and then I look at it again, and I realize they're good. They're good. All the data is there that I need. So that'll give you the preparation of what needs to be done. Your, you know, what you're going to actually have to do on the door in terms of the outside trim, I do think you should do a reality check because you may not need to do everything at all times. You know, for instance, this is the prep that you're going to do for the trim that we've got. Your 4 mounting holes, your spindle hole, because we're doing a new mortise lock prep with that cylinder hole. Do a reality check on it. Now, if you're doing a bunch of these, take the time. Make yourself a template. There are companies that, one in particular I'm thinking of, they literally make metal templates that everything is marked out and drilled and marked out, and you place it on the frame and you just center punch and you're done. Make your own or buy one. I don't know that there's one for a Dorma 9500, but the fact of the matter is, if you're doing if you're doing 3 or more, make yourself a template. Here's why. It's going to take you an hour to make the first template, but door 2 and 3 and every door after that is going to be seconds. No concern. Make the template, install, do 1 full installation, make sure you're good. Then you're just going to tear through the rest. And if you're doing a big project, you're going to want to, you know, you're going to want to make hay. You're going to want to get it done quickly, but accurately is the bottom line. So be mindful of all of that. I don't see any problems with anything here except that if you are doing a fire-rated device, you are certainly going to want to order the doors prepped at the factory. It would technically be a violation of the fire rating of the door to do the 1 inch by 1 5/8 cutout on the inside face. That would be too large of a prep to do in the field, so be mindful of that. Or have, whether the door is being manufactured or you're just buying it from your distributor, if the distributor is a listed shop, they need to do that work. Don't do it in the field. You technically violate the rating of the door if you do that. And if the door is wrong, then you're buying a new door. And always double check all your preps before you get to the job site, before you start taking tools out, because mistakes happen. Function holes are very tedious things. When they're drilled correctly, which is the minority of time, they are glorious to work with because it just fits. The factories have CNC tooling. They have machines that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars that will get those holes perfect, but they have to be programmed correctly first. Obviously, your big companies and your small ones, they're going to have a 9500 template on hand. Boom, 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 you're done. They'll take that steel, they'll shear it, they'll punch it in the flat, then they'll build their door, and it's accurate. But double check. Don't count on it. You've got guys coming to install material, double check it first. So that's the installation instructions. Now, finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Dorma products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And their service parts catalog as well. Now, I'm partial to Dorma, and it's because I am a believer in the quality of their product, and I'm also a believer in good old-fashioned support. And again, there's an individual at the factory who is flawless in answering my questions on locks, on exits, on closers, above and beyond, absolutely. And it makes me want to send as much business Dorma's way as possible because of that support that I get. We live in a world where it's easy to buy a lot of hardware. You can probably buy this from a million different places, both authorized channels of distribution and unauthorized. But what you're not going to get anywhere is support, or everywhere is support. And Dorma gives that to you in spades. Any questions on the Dorma 9500? this is a beat with a YC08 trim or any other Dorma product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.